I didn't bring it home on purpose. That's the part nobody understands. I didn't invite it. I didn't see it. I didn't even know it was attached to me until it crossed the doorway behind me. People think survival ends at escape. That once you're out, you're safe. But some things don't chase you. They wait. The day I returned home, everyone said the same thing. You're lucky. You made it. You can finally rest. I nodded. I smiled. I let them believe it. Because how do you explain that rest never came with you? That something subtle had already begun rearranging the space around you? The apartment looked exactly the same. Same couch, same walls, same faint crack above the window. But it didn't feel the same. Felt occupied. Not crowded. Not haunted. Just claimed. That first night, I slept without dreams. Which sounds like peace. But it wasn't. It was absence. When I woke up, my chest felt heavy. Not painful, just compressed. Like something had been resting there long before I opened my eyes. I checked the locks, windows, corners. Nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the certainty that I was no longer alone. The following days were quiet. Too quiet. No strange noises. No movement. No fierce spikes. Just a slow draining of things I used to notice. Food became mechanical. Conversation felt scripted. Time stretched thin. I stopped reacting to things that should have mattered. Bad news didn't sting. Good news didn't lift. Everything landed flat. People called it shock. They said I needed time to come back to myself. What they didn't understand was that I had come back lighter. Something stayed behind. And something else came with me. It started asserting itself in small ways. I'd walk into a room and forget why I entered, not briefly, but completely. I'd lose hours without sleep, without distraction. Just gaps. At first I blamed exhaustion, but exhaustion doesn't rearrange memories. I began to notice that certain thoughts no longer finished. They'd start, then stop, like someone else had decided they weren't necessary. One evening I laughed, a real laugh. It surprised me so much I froze mid-sound. Because the laugh didn't feel like it came from me. It echoed wrong. Not in the room, but inside my chest. The moment I stopped, the weight returned. Heavier, like it didn't like being noticed. That night, I dreamed for the first time since returning. I was standing in my apartment, watching myself sleep. Except I wasn't alone. Something stood beside the bed. Not touching, not moving, just present. When I woke up, my bedroom door was open. I always closed it. I didn't panic. That scared me more than anything else. Fear requires distance. This felt integrated. From that point on, the apartment began adapting. Not visually, functionally. Lights stayed on longer than I remembered switching them. Objects shifted places just enough to make me doubt myself. My reflection started lagging, not physically but emotionally. It showed reactions I hadn't felt yet. That's when I realized the truth. It wasn't attached to the apartment. It was aligned with me. It didn't need to act. It didn't need to scare me. It just needed to remain. Because whatever it was, it had learned something important where I came from. Survival doesn't mean escape. It means transfer. I tried to live normally. That was my first mistake. Because whatever came back with me didn't want attention. It wanted access. At first, it only interfered when I hesitated. Moments where I paused to think, to feel, to decide. Those pauses stopped happening. Decisions came pre-made. Not loudly, not forcefully, just already chosen. I realized later that I'd agreed to things I didn't remember consenting to. Conversations where my mouth moved faster than my thoughts. Commitments I couldn't explain. People said I sounded confident. That scared me. Confidence without intent isn't confidence. It's surrender. I started keeping notes, dates, events, how I felt. Not because I was forgetful, but because I didn't trust what stayed. I'd write something down, then read it hours later and feel nothing. No recognition, no disagreement, just neutrality. It felt like my memories were becoming optional, like suggestions instead of facts. Sometimes I'd find messages I didn't remember sending, perfectly written, calm, convincing. They sounded like me, but better organized. The thing didn't rush. It studied. It learned how long I hesitated before saying no, how I reacted when people needed help, what kind of pressure made me fold. And then it began applying that pressure before I felt it. I noticed I was doing things I normally avoided, visiting places tied to old pain, talking to people I'd cut off for a reason. Each time I felt an internal nudge, not emotional, procedural, like a checklist being completed. The first real damage wasn't physical. It was relational. I hurt someone, not intentionally, not violently, just precisely. I said the exact thing that would land deepest. And the moment it left my mouth, I knew it wasn't meant to. I expected guilt. I expected panic. What I felt instead was relief. And that terrified me, because relief meant alignment. Whatever was with me approved. I tried grounding techniques, breathing, cold water, routine. They worked briefly, until the thing adjusted. It began acting through my attempts at control, turning calm into compliance, stillness into availability. The more I tried to regain myself, the more efficient it became. I realized then that resistance wasn't rebellion. It was data, and I was feeding it. The realization came during a simple moment. A choice that didn't matter. I was standing in a store deciding between two items. I didn't care which, yet my hand froze, not unsure, interrupted. Something inside me waited, not for permission, for confirmation. When I finally reached, the relief returned. Immediate, heavy, satisfied. That's when I knew. It wasn't influencing me. It was operating me. It didn't want chaos. It didn't want destruction. It wanted continuity, to keep moving forward, to keep surviving, to keep functioning. It avoided extremes, avoided collapse, avoided attention. Because breakdowns end stories, and whatever this was, needed the story to continue, through me. The hardest truth wasn't that I was being used. It was that I had always been compatible, not special, not chosen, just suitable. Whatever followed me home didn't attach itself randomly. It recognized something in me long before I did. That's why escape felt possible. Not because I was lucky, but because I was useful. I started tracing my life backward. Moments I survived that shouldn't have been close. Times I adapted instead of breaking. Losses I absorbed quietly. I had always been good at continuing, even when nothing felt resolved. Especially then. It wasn't a creature, not a spirit, not a shadow. It was a process, a continuation mechanism. Something that required living hosts who could endure without collapsing. People who could carry unresolved weight indefinitely. Where I came from wasn't an accident. That place filtered people. Most reached an end. Some didn't. Those who didn't were marked by survival. And survival left residue. Ending is inefficient. Breakage draws attention. What it needed was continuity without disruption. Lives that looked normal. People who blended. I didn't scream. I didn't spiral. I didn't collapse. I adjusted. That was the qualification. Not strength. Not bravery. Adaptation. I tried one last thing. Not resistance. Not rebellion. I stopped continuing. I let moments remain unfinished. Let silence stretch. Let discomfort sit. I refused closure. Refused resolution. Refused to move forward automatically. And for the first time, it hesitated, because it didn't know what to do with stillness. The pressure returned immediately. Not violent. Not urgent. Heavy. Persistent. Continuing would be easier. Ending the pause would feel better. That's when I understood the final rule. Survival only works if you keep moving. Stillness threatens the system. And I was standing still. I don't know if it left, or if it simply stopped aligning. The relief didn't come back. Neither did the pressure. Things felt neutral, unassisted. My choices felt slower, heavier, but real. Pain returned too, sharp, honest. I welcomed it. Survival isn't heroic. It's mechanical. And if you survive long enough without stopping, something else might start using that momentum. Not because you're weak, but because you're capable of enduring. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, if you've been strong for too long, if continuing feels automatic, pause. Stillness isn't failure. It's interruption. And not everything that follows you home deserves to stay.